I'm Nima Rajan. Employees in federally regulated workplaces could soon face mandatory COVID-19 vaccinations. Affected work environments would include airlines, railways, banking, parliament, and crown corporations like the Canada Post. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he has asked the country's top bureaucrat to look at whether the policy should be put into practice. The open discussion follows Quebec's newly announced vaccine passport system. Meanwhile, Quebec appears to be entering a fourth wave of the pandemic, and health officials are warning that infections will likely continue to rise in the coming weeks. Premier François Legault's government is imposing a vaccine passport system in a new effort to try and curb the spread of the virus. Health Minister Christian Dubé will announce details about the system in the coming days, including when it will begin. If Canadians head to the polls this fall, the country's top doctor is confident that people will be able to cast ballots safely. Chief Public Health Officer Dr. Theresa Tam says even with the threat of a fourth wave of COVID-19 infections, protocols can be put in place to minimize the risk of voting in person. She notes that anyone who feels at risk can opt to vote by mail. First Nations chiefs and delegates will gather virtually this week to discuss their community's plans for moving forward in the wake of discoveries of several unmarked burial sites adjacent to former residential schools. The Assembly of First Nations' 42nd Annual General Gathering comes a few weeks after the election of a new national chief to represent its 634 First Nations. Immigration Minister Marco Mendicino says the government won't share details on how many Afghan refugees landed in Canada and where they are being settled. He says there won't be much information on the first plane load that arrived in Toronto yesterday and those who will arrive later in order to protect the evacuees and the security of the operation. A surge in exports pushed Canada's trade surplus to $3.2 billion in June. In volume terms, June exports rose 7% and imports fell 2.2%. Statistics Canada says total exports increased 8.7% to reach a record $53.8 billion in June, with gains in 9 of 11 subsectors that included a 22.9% rise in exports of energy products. Canada's Competition Bureau is seeking records and information from 4 of Canada's telecom service providers as part of its review of a proposed takeover of Shaw Communications by Rogers Communications. The Bureau says it obtained court orders for the information from BCE, Telus, ExploreNet Communications, and Quebecor, the parent company of Videotron. The Bureau says the records and written information will help in the investigation around whether the Rogers-Shaw deal would lessen or prevent competition. Fire officials in BC say the White Rock Lake fire that is threatening large parts of the province's interior is expected to grow. While there is no official update on the fire's perimeter, last measured at 325 square kilometers, the BC Wildfire Service says the blaze has jumped across a major highway in the area, pushing the level of danger higher. The results of the Yukon election stand after a former cabinet minister who lost her seat in a tie vote also lost her bid to overturn the election result in court. Liberal Pauline Frost challenged the tie of 78 votes each in the riding of Vuntut-Gwitchin, days after the drawing of lots to determine the winner was her NDP opponent, Annie Blake. However, Yukon Supreme Court Chief Justice Suzanne Duncan found election officials acted in accordance with the Elections Act. Saskatchewan's ombudsman has found a Regina nursing home was unprepared for a deadly COVID-19 outbreak last year. The outbreak was declared in November at Parkside Extendicare. All but 4 of the facility's 198 residents tested positive for COVID-19 and 39 died due to the virus. The ombudsman's report says the facility was overcrowded and lax in enforcing public health orders. The leader of Ontario's official opposition, Andrea Horwath, announced yesterday that she is, in fact, in favor of requiring education workers to get the COVID-19 vaccine. It comes a day after she told the CBC that she considered it a charter right for people to refuse the vaccine, the same stance that Tory Premier Doug Ford takes. Ms. Horwath now says she, quote, made a mistake. She says she supports mandatory vaccination in healthcare and education. The chief of a Nova Scotia First Nation says 9 of the community's lobster fishing boats were purposely cut loose from a wharf on St. Mary's Bay. Sabeganagadi Chief Mike Sack says he believes yesterday's incident was intended to cause damage and intimidate the community. Violent protests by some non-Indigenous fishers began last fall after the band launched its own self-regulated commercial lobster fishery. All right, after the break, we speak to the man known as the fastest swimmer in Canadian history about his ups and downs of his Olympic journey. An interview with Canadian Olympian Mr. Brent Hayden coming up next. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. Team Canada continues to do well at the Tokyo Games, with many athletes wearing the maple leaf going on to break records and achieve new personal bests. This is certainly true of Brent Hayden. The 37-year-old man from Mission, BC, became the oldest swimmer to swim under 48 seconds in the 100-meter freestyle portion of the relay race. He also came within 0.04 seconds of making the 50-meter final. What makes his story more remarkable is that he retired from the sport after winning Canada's first Olympic medal in the 100-meter free 7 years ago. But then after 2 years of training, Brent Hayden was back wearing the maple leaf in Tokyo. Joining us now to tell us more about the ups and downs of his Olympic journey is the man considered the fastest swimmer in Canadian history, Mr. Brent Hayden himself. Sir, welcome to Forum Daily.
Thanks for having me.
So first of all, how does it feel to be back at the Olympics?
Oh, still definitely jet lagged, but it feels amazing. Went into that journey not sure if I was going to be able to do it, but I was ready for the challenge. So to be able to get to Tokyo, post that 47.99, leading off the relay, almost winning a medal in the relay that we weren't even expected to be competitive in, and then just narrowly missing that final, tying for 9th. And I'm just incredibly proud of what I achieved.
And given all that happened, we mentioned you retired a few years ago. What made you get back into the pool?
It was actually originally for business. We wanted to film our online swimming course because we'd been running swim camps ever since I retired across Canada, and we wanted to make that curriculum available to everybody. So while we were visiting in Lebanon, which is my wife's home country, we found an amazing Olympic-sized pool, and we started filming the course. So that's what got me into the water. And then I was just surprised at how good my body was feeling. But I also started to remember all the good things I loved about swimming. I started to rediscover that relationship that I had with the water, and just kind of realize that I didn't leave the sport in a good place. And I thought, well, maybe this is my chance to come back to the sport and fall in love with it again.
And not only did you come back after retiring, but you did so during a pandemic. So what was the experience like training during a pandemic?
Yeah, it was crazy. I actually, after only 6 months being back, I was in Des Moines at the Tier Pro Series swim meet, and I actually swam under the Olympic A qualifying time. I went to 21.97. So I was feeling super ready. And then only a week later, COVID hit and all the pools had to shut down. So we needed to get creative. So I got a rubber stretch cord and hooked it around my waist and tied it to my mom's garden fence and started tethered swimming in their small backyard pool. Got a wetsuit and went to Sassamat Lake in Port Moody and doing some open water swimming. Stretch cords in the park, anything to really stay in shape. I was doing my wife's old workout DVDs in the living room. Yeah, just trying to figure out a way to kind of keep the body going.
That definitely sounds creative, sir. So what has been your biggest takeaway from the Tokyo 2020 Games and other Olympics that you have participated in?
I think it just proves that, age is only a number. I've been hearing so much from not just young athletes, but from middle-aged people as well, and older people coming up to me, telling me how I've inspired them to realize that it's not too late to necessarily go after their dreams. Like, they haven't really missed out. But also for the younger athletes to realize that if they need to take time away, whether it's to recover from a physical injury or to repair their mental health, that they have time to do that. Our window of opportunity isn't as narrow as we once thought.
Mr. Hayden, some really inspiring words there. Now, with over a decade of experience being part of the most difficult swimming events in the world, what kind of advice would you give aspiring athletes when it comes to following their dreams of maybe becoming an Olympian like yourself?
There's no detail too small to pay attention to. Right? When you're fighting for hundredths of a second, the smallest little details are the ones that are going to matter. And I just think that if you have a big enough heart and you really truly do love it, you're going to go further than somebody who's trying to do it based on just the talent alone. Like, I was not a good swimmer when I was growing up. I failed swimming lessons, twice. I was just a small summer club, swimmer for a long time, up until I was almost 16 years old. But I just had a big heart, and I genuinely love swimming, and so I wanted to become the best swimmer that I could. So pay attention to those details and just figure out what is one thing I can do today to be a little bit better than I was yesterday.
All right, sir, just about 45 seconds left, but what are the next steps for you following this year's games?
So I'm actually going to be going to Italy later this month to compete in the ISL, the International Swimming League. I'll be representing the Toronto Titans for their second season. I was co-captain of the team last season with our star Kylie Mass. So I'm looking forward to doing that again. And then from there, I'm just going to take it one step at a time and just see where this journey goes. I'm not ruling out Paris, so we'll see if this journey takes me there.
All right, we look forward to following your journey, Mr. Hayden. Thank you again for your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, stay with us. The Liberal government looks for new public input on a new online regulator for illegal content on the internet. We'll have an interview with Ms. Julie Miville-Dechêne after the break, so stay with us. We'll be right back. Last Thursday, the Liberal government released a proposal on a new system to ensure illegal content such as hate speech and child pornography is removed from online platforms within 24 hours of being flagged. Among other things, the plan would see the creation of a Digital Safety Commissioner of Canada who will supervise new regulations to 5 key pieces of content, including child pornography, terrorist content, hate speech, and the sharing of non-consensual images. The discussion and technical papers are available on the Canadian Heritage website for public review. The government has indicated its plans to introduce legislation in fall 2021. Well, joining us now to review these proposed rules is Senator Julie Miville-Dechêne, independent senator for Quebec and advocate for regulation around the pornography industry. Ma'am, welcome back to Forum Daily.
Thank you for having me.
Now, there's a lot in this legislation, ma'am. In your view, what are the key points of the proposal to address harmful content online?
So first of all, this is a technical paper. So you have to understand that all citizens can participate in consultation. This will not be the end result in the law. The government thinks it's controversial enough to try to organize a consultation. So it's quite interesting. I have to say it's a bit late coming. We were hoping for this last winter, and it's probably because of the controversial nature of this proposal, because some are saying this is basically censure. I don't think it is. So the most interesting thing is creating a digital safety commissioner. So this will be an independent body that will have to watch internet and to see what harmful content is in it and if it's removed. So it will have wide power to ask internet platforms to remove in 24 hours harmful content. So that's really, for me, very encouraging. And also, you will have fines that could be slapped on non-compliant platforms of really high fines, 5% of revenues. We're talking here in millions. So this is certainly not perfect, but this is a good start for me, because at this point, internet giants are very powerful. They're not spending enough time to watch what's on their platform. And now we would have, with this suggested law, there would be fines, and there would be even a possibility of block a website who would not comply at all. So this will give not the government, but the commissioner, who is independent, some power to try to make internet a little less harmful for people.
Ma'am, just about 2.5 minutes left, but I guess the big question here is this proposed legislation robust enough to ensure that illegal videos depicting sex trafficking victims, child pornography, content like that, is this enough to prevent this kind of content from being posted online?
Nothing will be enough. Illegal content will be posted online. What we're trying to achieve here is to have posted, as to be able to get it off as soon as possible. So this is what we're aiming for, trying to get rid of this content, because people will upload illegal content. I don't think you will be able to cut it at the source. The idea is to make the platform responsible, to have them have the right tools to detect what's illegal and to take it off as soon as possible.
All right, ma'am, just over a minute left, but I really want to get into Bill S-203, the bill you're advocating for. We recently covered this on the Forum Daily. Would you be able to give us a brief overview of Bill S-203 and the most recent updates around the bill's passage?
Well, the good news is that this bill has passed all the steps in the Senate. So the bill has been adopted by the Senate, which is quite a victory for a private bill. And I've worked with my team 8 months on it. However, I have to say that an election is looming. And if there's an election, we'll have to start over. But during this particular process, the bill was improved. We now have a tribunal that could intervene to make sure that the blocking of a website is done properly. So the bill was improved. We listened to some of the criticism. We had wide support in the Senate, and most witnesses who came to testify in our hearing said, yes, we know that porn, that this especially hardcore porn, is damageable for kids, for minors. So something should be done. Not everybody agreed on what had to be done, but many agreed that age verification was one good way to try to have less kids watching obscene and harmful porn.
All right, Senator Dechêne, always great having you on Forum Daily. Thank you again for your time today.
Thank you.
We'll be right back, everyone. Stay tuned. Hiroshima is marking the 76th anniversary of the world's first atomic bombing. The mayor of the Japanese city, Kazumi Matsui, is marking the anniversary by urging world leaders to commit to nuclear disarmament as seriously as they are tackling the COVID-19 pandemic. The U.S. dropped the world's first atomic bomb on Hiroshima on August 6, 1945, killing 140,000 people. It dropped a second bomb 3 days later on Nagasaki, killing another 70,000. China has appointed a new military commander in Restiv, Xinjiang, where authorities have locked up more than 1 million members of Muslim minorities. Lieutenant General Wang Haijiang will oversee the military presence in the region that borders on several unstable Central Asian states, along with Afghanistan. China is concerned about the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan and fears a resurgence of Islamist militancy along its border. China's foreign minister recently hosted a delegation from the Taliban, which has been making territorial gains. Bodies floating down the river separating Ethiopia from Sudan are a reminder of the ongoing conflict in Ethiopia's Tigray region. But in recent days, the number of bodies is raising fresh fears about atrocities in the 9-month Tigray war. The Sudanese fishermen and refugees from Tigray report finding many bodies with their hands bound. Some of them had been shot. The Associated Press reported the bodies earlier this week and reached the scene on Wednesday, where the AP saw at least 6 of their graves. Refugees fear many more. The Taliban has shot and killed the director of Afghanistan's Government Information Media Center, the latest killing in a series of attacks on journalists and rights activists in recent months. Taliban spokesman Zabihullah Mujahid told the Associated Press on Friday that the group's fighters had killed Dawa Khan Menapal, who ran the government's press operations for the local and foreign media. In a statement Mr. Mujahid put out later, he said Mr. Menapal was killed in a special attack of Mujahideen and was punished to his deeds. Thousands of people have crowded COVID-19 vaccination centers in the Philippines' capital after false news spread saying that unvaccinated residents would be denied cash aid or barred from leaving home during a 2-week lockdown. Officials placed metropolitan Manila under lockdown until August 20th as a new spike in COVID-19 infections threatens to overwhelm hospitals. The false news reports sent large crowds heading for vaccination centers, even without prior registrations. CNN has fired 3 employees for violating its policy that employees must be vaccinated against the COVID-19 virus. The network did not provide any details about the firings, but Jeff Zucker, chairman of Warner Media News and Sports, wrote that the company has a zero-tolerance policy about unvaccinated employees working in its offices. CNN has delayed a planned post-Labor Day return to offices. Wildfires have rekindled outside Athens and forced more evacuations around southern Greece. Weather conditions continue to worsen, and firefighters are in a round-the-clock battle to stop the flames just outside the birthplace of the ancient Olympics. Additional support has arrived from Greece's military and European Union countries. Mexico's Poverty Measurement Agency says an additional 3.8 million Mexicans had fallen into poverty in 2020 compared to 2018, largely because of the coronavirus pandemic. The poor now make up 43.9% of Mexico's 126 million people, compared to 41.9% 2 years earlier. About 2.1 of the 3.8 million newly poor fell into extreme poverty, defined as being unable to meet their basic needs for food, clothing, and shelter. Google co-founder Larry Page has gained New Zealand residency, officials confirmed, stoking debate over whether extremely wealthy people can essentially buy access to the South Pacific country. Immigration New Zealand said Mr. Page first applied for residency in November under a special visa open to people with at least 10 million New Zealand dollars to invest. Immigration New Zealand noted that while Mr. Page had become a resident, he didn't have permanent residency status and remained subject to certain restrictions. The top aviation regulator in the U.S. is asking local officials to consider filing criminal charges more often against people who act up during airline flights. Federal Aviation Administration Chief Stephen Dixon says airline crews often ask police to meet their plane when it lands because of unruly passengers. Mr. Dixon says many of the passengers are interviewed by police and then released without any charges. Elisa Shalalpa has had 3 daughters and found a new job that she enjoys since a former boyfriend tried to destroy her life by tossing acid on her when she was 18. 2 decades later, she is still seeking justice. Survivors of acid attacks like Ms. Shalalpa are banding together and raising their voices in Mexico, despite the country's sky-high violence, especially toward women, and staggering levels of impunity. All right, that'll do it for your look at national and international news for today. For more news, you could always check out our website or follow us on social media. Take care, Canada. See you next time.